Hello, this is TelecomTV. We're in London at the Wireless Global Congress, and I'm talking with Julie Snell, who is Managing Director of Bristol is Open. Julie, thanks for talking to us. An absolute pleasure to see you again. You're looking well.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Thank you. Here we go then. Bristol, you know that I know Bristol very well indeed, and I know that you know Bristol very well indeed. How in Bristol are you working with carriers and vendors to realise the vision of the city as a smart city?
So that's actually quite a big question at the moment, because Bristol is Open was set up as a joint venture between the council and the university, primarily as a technology research and test bed. But we're now moving from that to more of a pilot phasing. And as a pilot, we now need to look at, well, what are we going to take forward afterwards? And that means we've had to start engaging more with the local carriers and the sort of M&Os, etc., particularly in the areas where it probably wouldn't be natural for them to do so at the moment. The centre of Bristol, as you know, beautiful, well covered, very successful. But like every city, we've got a big chunk of our city that's not covered. And at the moment, it's difficult to prove the viability to the vendors to come out there and actually do that coverage. So we're trying to work with them to find different models of actually delivering services to the people who can't necessarily afford the same sort of contracts that you and I would be used to paying. And it's really important because it actually underpins some of the key initiatives that the city needs to now engage in.
So how are you working with the carriers? Do you find they're receptive to the ideas of Bristol as Bristol being open in every respect and technologically, or do you find there's a resistance to it?
There's definitely not a resistance. I think there is a challenge with some of the bigger players, because there's areas they want to cherry prick's probably not the right word, but there's areas where commercially they can make the business case stack up at the moment and areas where they can't. And that causes a challenge. But what we are finding is actually the local fibre suppliers are coming to the fore and offering to do things like enable schools for free as they pass them. If we can help them find a way of, putting more economical services in there. And we couldn't be doing any of that if it wasn't for the help we're getting from DCMS at the moment and the advice they're giving us to ensure that what we're looking at is a proper open carrier network scenario so that any of the carriers can join us.
Glad you mentioned openness, because that's going to be my next question to you. How open do you think Bristol is Open is going to be?
I would like to think Bristol is going to be completely open, and I don't think it'll work if we had any other model. Bristol's quite unique. We do have a lot of our own ducting, which does give us a head start. And that ducting could be utilised to put more fibre in and get more connectivity. We could also potentially use more of the buildings, our street furniture, in a more collaborative way. So if we could put that technology base out there and then allow all of the operators to come and buy into it, perhaps in a cooperative style model, then I think we could be really open. And I understand from the advice we're getting from DCMS that that is a model that works with state aid and competitive rules. And for me, if you don't have a competitive environment, we don't have an open environment where all the carriers can play, you get complacency. You get that piece where you're back to the old days. You can have any phone you like as long as it's from BT. And if you have got competitors, you have got innovation, because it has to happen. And we need to keep innovating. So yeah, it's got to be open. Absolutely got to be open.
One of the buzzwords over the past few years now across telecoms across the world has been collaboration and partnerships. And it's obviously the time is right for that, because not everybody can do everything. How are you managing the collaboration process? Are you collaborating on the collaboration process?
Definitely. Collaboration is probably what I would say has become the core of Bristol is Open's role. So I would describe us as sitting in the middle now. We have a stake from the council and the university. We have actual alliances with the city partners. We have alliances with corporates. We have alliances with SMEs, and we are bringing the people into our mix now. We are actually engaging with the people to help us design the solutions to the problems that we've started with now. We've started with a problem, we're coming back down. And if we don't pull those people into a room and get them to collaborate, it isn't going to happen. And that's the NHS example for me is the big one. We actually managed to get something like 12 chief execs from across that NHS problem statement area into a room, and they actually decided to talk to each other, and we actually developed an experiment that we think will scale. And that happened because we're collaborating now.
Does the man and woman in the street, the end user, when you're talking about this collaboration and consultation, do they tell you what they want? Or do they have a wish list, or do they know what they want? Or when you present a menu to them, they say, I'll have that one and that one, or I'll have it all. How do you do it?
Okay, so I'm a bit of an old-fashioned girl. My business training was you start with a problem statement. So we have now identified the key problems. What we're doing is we're taking that to the people and saying, okay, this is the problem statement from the chief execs of all these organisations supplying services to you. Do you recognise that problem? Start with. And then if you recognise that problem, have we got it right? And does it need tweaking? It's the classic case if you said to someone, before Mr. Ford arrived, what do you want the horse to do better? You would never have said you wanted 4 wheels and an engine. They don't know what they need or want. So the clearer thing is to start with what's actually a problem for them and to work through that with them. And what we want is to bring them on that journey with us, because it's amazing how simple things that we overlook because we're thinking about the solution.
Too close to it.
Exactly. And that's why it's really making a difference for us in Bristol now.
So are you finding when the ordinary citizen comes to you with a problem, that you can see your way through it? This is a problem which applies to N thousand people or whatever it may be, and this is the way to tackle it.
Very definitely. I think as a city, we're very good at understanding the core problems now. We have a very innovative mayor who has utilised the whole city community to understand the problems, and that included the people. So what's not coming as any surprise now is what those problems are. We're seeing them, and yes, we have an understanding of the solution. And yes, sometimes the problems are probably not on this immediate agenda. So it's how do we find a way of ensuring we capture that as we move along our journey.
Can we come back to the problems and solutions to them, being positive about this?
Yeah.
It's evident, Julie, that being a smart city is more than just about connectivity for the citizens. You've talked about the problems that they come to you with. Can you give me a broad idea of what they are? What is it that they find problematical about a smart city or the possible provision of one?
I think I'm going to go with probably our core issues across the city and then talk about how they fit in.
Sure.
So, we're a classic city. Unfortunately, we're the 3rd most congested in the UK, which is giving us a pollution problem. So air quality is a big, big issue for us. We also had a massive increase in the people over 85 living in our city. And it turns out a huge percentage of those also live in isolation. And then when we looked even closer, they actually live the other side of the digital divide. So most of them haven't got much more than a classic old-fashioned phone line in their home. So for the caring and the health services to supply, even basic things like, could we do their blood pressure at home regularly and send it in remotely? Could we do their warfarin testing? Could we measure their blood sugar levels? All these things that cause these people a problem to get to a surgery that could easily be done at home, and the results sent in, and then the carer that comes in immediately comes in and adjusts the various medication. It sounds so basic, but actually it's a problem. And we're trying to work with that and find different ways of getting connectivity in that complies with state aid, competition rules, but actually how do we make that service smarter so that they can deliver more with the less money that's constantly going their way.
It's a complex proposition indeed, and hard to manage, but it takes the pressure off the surgeries and the clinics and so on. So it's a win-win, as people might say, even though I hate using that phrase, but I just used it anyway. What other use cases can you tell us, Julie, that for today and for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow that you see Bristol is Open doing?
So some of the things we're working on almost feel a little bizarre. We're doing some work with energy management. And in Bristol, we have our own energy company as well. We have our own biomass system. We have our own I'm going to go wind turbines. I nearly call them windmills. My apologies for that. David White's going to kill me. But effectively, we know that we need to move to more charging units, and that means that ultimately the drain on the energy system is a big, big problem. So we're part of a very big project with cities across Europe looking at different ways. And ironically, at the moment, one of the things we're doing is we're monitoring washing machines. We have devices in washing machines that are connected to our network. And the objective now is, we've just done the first phase, we've just gone live with it, is that we will now be able to look at energy flow. So when energy is at its peak demand and washing machines are on, those devices that have given us permission, we will turn them off so that we can reduce the power. And that's the sort of thing that we're looking at, because the bigger picture is there is never going to be enough power for the way we're currently consuming it. So we have to get smarter about how can we down the supply at the same time, and other ways of how can we store it as well. So particularly with things like housing in the city, we're looking at how we try and make sure that, one, we get connectivity built in from day one. My dig once strategy, we're the fourth utility, make sure you connect from the very beginning, and how we put solar panels in, but we also put forms of storage batteries. And storage batteries that mean that when the network is being drained, that power from their batteries can then carry on fueling their home. So we're involved with all of these things. It's monitoring that data, it's bringing it together, and it is very much about what's going to happen in the future and managing the dwindling resources that we have as a world.
Well, there's a long way to go, but certainly made a good start. And I'm fascinated by it, as you know, and we'll be keeping a close eye on it. But until then, Julie Snell, thank you very, very much indeed.
You're welcome.